Hello everyone and welcome back. I am Blake Allwood, author of gay fiction, including romance, science fiction, and a little science fiction and fantasy. So today we're back talking to you about how to save money when you are cooking, especially as the economy gets tighter and groceries get more expensive. We want to figure out ways to save money. Having grown up on a farm in a farming family in the middle of nowhere, Tennessee, I know a little bit about that. So I'm sharing you the knowledge that my mother and grandmother passed down to me. So the theme of today is waste not, want not. If you watch a lot of cooking shows or if you follow recipes online, you're always told to use the best ingredients. There's a lot of discussion about don't use frozen, use this, don't use canned foods. Unfortunately, that doesn't really work for people who are trying to save money. And the theme of today is really about how do you take what you have and turn it into a delicious, nutritious dish that will last a while. So today I'm going to use a hodgepodge of things, not all frozen, not all canned, if you're England tinned, not all fresh, and not all stuff that I have cooked before. It's kind of a mix. One of the concepts that I will be talking about throughout this series of recordings is something that my friend taught me years ago. It's called eating to the walls. Once you have stored way too much food in your freezer and you need to get rid of it, you have to stop cooking things that you've bought. You've got to start using what you have. And so this is also part of that. This is an eating to the walls recipe, and I'll show you how in just a moment. Today I'm going to make what's called chicken tortilla soup or fiesta soup. There are other names to it. And again, I'm not here to give you a recipe. That's not what I'm about. You can go online. There are hundreds of recipes for this, lots of different names, but the general concept. So I'm going to make mine based upon the recipe that I use. You are certainly not required to do that. We're going to start off, we're going to use our Instant Pot. Again, if you don't have one of these, you can use a regular pot. If you want one of these and you can't afford it, I suggest going to a thrift store because you find them there quite frequently, and then just clean it up real good and it's totally usable. I do not use the pressure setting. I'm going to use the saute setting, and then I'm going to use the slow cooker setting today. Saute to get things started, which is what I'm going to do now. And then I'm going to use the setting on slow cook so that those flavors begin to meld. So we're starting out with our liquids. I'm using a canned product. I got this one came from Aldi's, and it's just canned diced tomatoes. I'm using 2 cans of Rotel tomatoes because this dish is supposed to have a really strong Mexican-based flavor. And that requires some chilies and such as that. So I start with that, and that sets the stage for what I'm going to do next. The next ingredient that I'm going to add is a potato soup. Now, no recipe you're going to see online calls for potato soup. I'm using this because I'm cleaning out my freezer. Now, as you can see, I'm having to tear the bag because it's really hard to get this out. But I froze this about a month ago. My husband loves potato soup, and so I made a potato soup. I made too much of it, and so I'm going to use that as my base. There is a lot of chicken broth in this soup. I'm going to use that as my base. Two days ago, I made and froze chicken broth. Costco, Sam's, and most grocery stores have a rotisserie chicken that you can buy. And I buy those They're very inexpensive if you get them at Costco and at Sam's. They actually make a loss on that because they're trying to get you to come buy their food. So I go get mine at Costco. You can get yours at the local grocery store. It costs double if you do it at the grocery store than if you do it at Sam's or Costco. But I make my broth from the bones. I use the meat for a variety of things, and then I use my bones to make bone broth, which is incredibly good for you and great for soups like this. As you can see, I have broth left over. I wanted to show you, this is just another way that you can store your broth. This is a cup of broth. I lay it flat on this container. I put it in the freezer, and then I can store it easier. I'm not going to use that in my mix today because I already have enough of a base with the tomatoes, the potato soup, and the broth. Just to kind of reiterate, why am I using potato soup in this? Well, mainly because it's already seasoned. It's a thickener, which will give the soup a nice consistency. But even more important, it's a way for me to use something that I had frozen in my freezer. And the point of what we're working on, remember, is to save money. If you use what you have, you save money. I have already had this for a meal, and it's already paid for. So definitely want to use that. I also want to talk about chicken. I used up all my rotisserie chicken that I was going to use for this recipe yesterday in an Asian dish that I made because we were craving Asian food. So I didn't have any more fresh or any rotisserie chicken frozen. So I do happen to have a few cans of chicken up in my cabinet. And I don't usually like canned chicken for eating, regular eating. My sister makes chicken salad out of it, which is fine. I personally don't care that much for canned chicken. But when you put it in your soups, it really kind of disappears and just adds that meaty flavor. So I'm going to add canned chicken to my recipe. And this will give me that chicken flavor without having to spend a whole bunch of money for chicken. I'm also going to add then my seasonings. So we talked last week about going and getting a cheap bag of seasonings, and today is a great day for using those. And so I'm going to use those in there, and mainly because I'm lazy. I mean, not only does it save money, but I'm also a lazy cook. I don't want to have to cut up all that stuff. This has peppers, it has onions, it has celery. That's what I needed for this dish. So I'm just going to add that. I also told you last week that I love to hide vegetables in my soup. I learned that when I was raising children. So I like to add some vegetables. I'm adding peas and carrots to this one, just to add a little more nutrient to the thing. And that only cost, so I paid about $2 for the peppers and onions. I paid about 88 cents for the carrots and the peas. The chicken cost about $2 to $2.50 a can, so I had $5 in that. The broth cost me nothing. The potato soup cost me nothing. I've already used that. But the cans of tomato I had at Aldi's, I have about $1 in the can of tomatoes, and then I have about $1.50 in each of the Rotel cans. So that gives you an idea of where we are financially at this point. Now I'm going to add my flavors. Again, you've seen me use this garlic in every recipe thus far. Again, I cannot reiterate how important it is that you buy in bulk. As you can see, every time I cook, I almost am using this bulk container of minced garlic. Not only is it wonderful for flavoring my food, but I'm lazy. I'm a lazy cook. I don't want to have to mince up garlic, so that's done for me. We also talked about oils, and you don't have to add oils to yours. There's a lot of natural fat in my broth. I do add a little olive oil, a little more than I used last week, because I like the flavor in my Mexican-based dishes, and I like that creaminess that olive oil provides. I also use a recipe, and as I'm spicing this up, I'm not going to tell you what spices I'm really using, but what I suggest you do is estimate how much liquid you're going to have when you've put all of your ingredients together. Here I have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have about 8 cups of liquid in my total soup here. So I go on, I pull my recipe up, and then I use the ingredients that they use online that I saw in the recipe, but I modify it for about 8 cups of liquid. Sorry, that does mean you have to do math. But if I can do the math on this, I think anybody can do the math on this. Math is not my skill. I use a lot of cumin in this dish because I want that rich south of the border flavor. Basil is one of those things that you're told not to put in your dishes before you cook. That's something you're supposed to add after. I, however, have always used it in my dishes before. It weakens the flavor, but it does allow you to have just enough of a taste to make it taste right. I also add black beans, and I put my black beans to the side because I'm using canned, and you guys watched me make this last week. Here's the thing. Those black beans taste great. I can use those for a lot of different things. I had this in my cabinet, and I'm waste not, want not. So this is something I had bought when I needed beans, because I hadn't made any in a while. So I need to get rid of this. I'm not going to waste it. I'm going to use it today in this dish, even though I have stuff frozen. That stuff doesn't taste, this stuff doesn't taste as good as that does. So I'm adding it to this recipe because it will add that bean that I want in my flavor. Again, we like a kick. And cayenne is really good for you. I told you I wasn't going to tell you my seasonings I put in here, but I guess I am. Always need a little sodium. But now most of the things in here are already seasoned, so be very, I don't use a lot of salt. All of these recipes call for quite a bit of chili powder. I almost used my taco seasoning that I had in there because it's about to go out of date, but I also had this, and I thought, I really need a strong chili powder flavor, so I went ahead and used straight chili powder. And this is oregano. Oregano is one of those things you just kind of need in anything you make south of the border or Italian even. Just a kind of an important thing. And of course pepper. So now we're going to let things thaw and sit for a while. When we come back, I will show you the completed soup. I am going to taste this once everything is merged. I'm going to give it a taste test. I'm going to taste for seasoning. I'm going to taste for anything that's missing. I may end up needing to add some lemon juice, but I wanted to find out how my potato soup mixes with this first, because I don't want to add too much lemon juice, too much acid, until I know what the flavors are. So I probably will have to add an acid to this, but I'll let you know what that is when we come back after I've tasted it. Because when you're eating to the walls and you're creating a recipe, you have to taste test throughout the entire day. I will see you guys in about 6 hours, and I look forward to when you come back. Thanks. Welcome back. It has been around 6 hours, and as you can tell, the soup is done. My husband wanted me to show you how things are stored, how we store things to make them usable, how we freeze them to make them usable for later. Before we go much further, I did tell you that I would probably have to add something. As soon as everything was melted and began to merge together, I tasted it. The acid was perfect because the tomatoes had given it a nice acidic flavor. I don't really like sweets in my savory food, so I don't add sugar to mine, although a lot of recipes do call for that. It did, however, need to be brightened up. And the best way to do that was to add a couple tablespoons of lemon juice. That seemed to be the very perfect thing, so that's all I added to the recipe. But if you are experimenting, if you're eating to the walls and you're throwing your food together, especially if you're going to put a potato soup into a soup like this, which actually, really gave it a nice creamy texture, and it also gave it it's not as liquidy, which my husband doesn't like really liquidy soups. So it really did do that for us. But you do have to taste, and you kind of have to see, do you have to add, or do you have to, make it, add more chicken broth to make it not so pronounced. So you do have to experiment with that. We will do the numbers in the video, and the husband will put up that list like he does in all the other videos. It tells you how much we have in it. Roughly, in our estimate, we have it around $12, between $10 to $12, and maybe actually less, but we were guessing around $10 to $12 in the total recipe, because I used a lot of stuff that we already had left over. Again, we didn't have to pay for the chicken broth because the chicken was what we ate. The chicken broth was left over. All it cost was my time. And then a lot of the other ingredients we already had used as well, and then charged those to other things. So we have about $10 to $12. That means we have about, with the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 servings that we have, and these are all the same amount of servings, it comes out to about $1.50 a serving. So, again, very cheap, very affordable. When I serve this kind of food, we have a few things that we like to put on it. We like to have tortilla chips, we like a little shredded cheese, and we like sour cream. This adds an expense, and it can be a significant expense, because cheese and sour cream can be kind of expensive. But you don't have to do that for your soup. We will not be counting that in the cost of this. For us, it probably raises this to $1.75 per serving, but we're not going to do those numbers for you. What I do want to show you is when I put my food away, I really do want to get to what a serving size is. Most of the time, we eat about a cup of food. We consider that a serving. So a cup of beans, a cup of rice would be, two. It makes 2 servings. And we have, I showed you last week the larger containers that we use for that. Soup doesn't go as far as some of our other dishes. So when we put ours away, we consider 2 cups 1 serving. And there's 2 cups in each of these bowls. There's 2 cups in each of these smaller rectangular containers. And there are 4 cups in our larger rectangular container. And this will be something that we thaw when we're going to eat something at night. The 1 servings, I eat these for lunch. My husband takes those for lunch as well. If he's working late, I might pull this out and have it at night. Those cold or cool nights, those are perfect for having. Unlike a lot of the other recipes that I'll be showing you, this one doesn't really turn into other things as well as the other things do. So we really usually just eat this as soup. But this is a really common way that we use to eat to the walls. A bunch of my lights automatically just came on. That's what you just saw. I do want to very quickly say this type of soup has, every culture kind of has something. The Italians have minestrone soup. You know that was just someone who threw a bunch of food together to make soup because he or she had it left, more likely she had it left over in her, had leftovers that she wanted to turn into something else. Potato soup. One of my very favorite dishes is in the UK is what they call bubble and squeak, which is not a soup, but it's potatoes, it's cabbage, and it's ham that people threw together. They tend to do it over the holiday season. And it's just one of my very favorite dishes. So there's a lot of things that you can make just by throwing things together, and it turns out to be really delicious. It also gets rid of it. And for those of us who don't absolutely love leftovers, I don't love leftovers. So it gives you an alternative to the leftovers. So as you can see, this is in a very affordable dish. I have between $1, $1.50 each in each of the dishes. And we will freeze this. We will be able to eat this over a period of time. So it's a good thing. I'm going to change my message up a little bit today and say, if with all of the political things that are going on today, just remember who you are. Remain yourself. Stand up for the things that you believe in. And don't let people who are being mean sway you away from being respectful to other human rights and privileges. We all deserve to have the same rights. If you liked my video, please go to blakeallwood.com and buy my books. That is the easiest way to pay me back for this. Please share the video also if you like it, and we will see you again next week. Thanks.